My name's Kate Mozier-Tichy, and I am a local researcher. I have my undergraduate in general studies with a concentration in military history, and I'm currently a master's student at the Library and Information Sciences at Southern Connecticut. So I'm here to talk to you a little bit about Ridgefield and Fairfield County's native populations, episode 1, the founding of Ridgefield. So let's bring this up here. All right, so Ridgefield and Fairfield County's native populations, episode 1, the founding of Ridgefield. So as we know, Western Connecticut was opened up about 1637 after the Pequot War. So here we have a map of Connecticut. This is not a colonial map. This is a 18th century map, but it gives us a good idea of where everything is. So the colony of Fairfield was one of the first founded, 1639, with Stratford also 1639. We also have Greenwich, Stamford, and Norwalk, and Danbury also founded by 1702. So then we have the 7th town founded in Fairfield County. So it was first discussed in 1697, actually, but it wasn't until May 1706 that they sent men to survey the land. And it wasn't until 1708 that settlers from Norwalk and Milford petitioned the assembly to settle the land now known as Ridgefield. So, as we can see on my slide, between 1708 and 1739, these settlers actually made 9 different purchases. So and I have them all listed here, and you can see there's a little bit of a gap between 1708 and 1725, but as we'll find out, that's actually when they were setting up the town. But so this town is north of Norwalk, on the Norwalk border. And here I have the Fairfield town seal because of the image on it. We have the agreement between the natives and settlers. And though this is a little bit of a contentious image, it is good because it shows how, it's a good example of how Connecticut was founded. Connecticut towns tend to be founded on these agreements and purchases from natives. And also key here is the motto on the bottom, qui transultit sustenent. It's that which transplants sustains. And that comes from the first settlers in Connecticut transplanting from Massachusetts. And that actually continues on in founding most of Connecticut. You find that these different people come from different towns to keep finding new towns, and they keep spreading out. So the original deed of purchase, 1708, was signed by Chief Catoonah of the Ramapoh Indians. And here we have Catoonah's signature. It was sold, they sold about 20,000 acres for about 100 pounds, which is about just under $21,000 today, which is a little bit of a steal now that we know where that land is. And Catoonah, though, continues to sign all of these signatures. This land was called Katotoa by the natives, which meant highland, which we'll revisit again. And this deed was signed by Catoonah and 8 other native leaders. Unfortunately, these 8 other native leaders didn't have so much of history about them, because Catoonah, we still know today, because Catoonah, New York is named after him. And that's because after they signed these deeds and they moved out of the land, they actually were pretty sure they moved west to New York, and their descendants are now known today as the Ramapoh Lenape Nation. And we'll revisit them in a later video. Oh, and another thing about their signatures, I just wanted to say, if you notice, it's not an actual signature. They actually usually use pictograms, and the settlers would write their names in next to them. They're also called totems sometimes. I prefer the pictogram phrase. But yeah, no, so you'll see those on the deeds, and his little signature is always there on the deeds. So Ridgefield, obviously, was given, the name was given for its geological center, which is on a ridge. And again, that comes from the natives also made a very similar thing by calling it the high place or highland, Katotoa. So there were 24 original settlers plus a congregational minister, because all towns in Connecticut needed a congregational minister. So that's 25 plots. And these 25 plots were 7.5 acres each, and they went along Main Street. And now about a little bit about the land. So we know that there's a lot of ridges there. Well, these ridges, some of them are still named, some of them are not. Like we have Cops Hill, Titicus Mountain, High Ridge, and West Mountain. And you'll see that some of those are still retain Native American names. So Main Street actually was created around 1709, and that's when they started laying out all the lots. The official road, like a road, was not laid out until 1721, which just tells you how long things took to get done back then. Now, this road was 8 rods wide, they say, which we know today is about 132 feet wide. That's a good wide road. And it went from a place called Casagmo, which is a estate built in 1892, actually, and it is not a Native American name, to the head of Branchfield Road. Now, originally, I guess it went around the village green in Ridgefield, and at some point it was changed to go through the village green. And Main Street was extended at some point too, but otherwise it has remained very much the same in the middle of Ridgefield. Yeah, and it's also called Town Street. And now, interestingly, they pointed out on one of my research things that this, if you look at Ridgefield, it actually has 3 really old roads that converge there. Which just shows that it meant to be an intersection, and that's how they got people to go there. But all right, so Native American place names. Native American influence is still seen in the area. Now, unfortunately, Casagmo, the estate, is not a Native American name. That's actually Italian casa and then his initials, so the house of so and so, which actually his name was George Man Alcott. But, so there are some Native American place names still in the area. So Asprumquock, or Asfrum, which is actually a corruption of Asprumquock, as is Aspen in the area. So if you see that on any signs. And they think that means high or lofty. Lake Manamasco, Mamanasco, I can't say that. That one they think means grassy pond or united outlets. There is some debate over what these words mean due to the loss of Native American languages, because they were not written, they were oral languages, and also because settlers would write these down horribly in multiple ways, and so they got corrupted very, very easily. And then we also have Nisopak, which means 2 ponds or double pond. Titicus, and Titicus is another one that actually comes from Mughiticus. I can't say that one either. And Umpawag. So yeah, these are quite corrupted, some of them. But interestingly, there's also a Fort Hill in Ridgefield. And that's actually not named for a settler fort. That's actually named for what they think was a Native American citadel on top of the hill. So as you can see, their influence is still widely felt in the area. And you can see on the map there, we have the little, this is actually a 1930 map that was made to explore the different, to show the different villages. And so you can see the Ramapohs down there. And you can see it's spelled differently than we have it spelled in here. And again, that has to do with the settlers just spelling everything differently. But yeah, now they spell it for the Ramapoh Lenape with an O-U-G-H. And here I just have some further reading for everybody if everybody wants to learn a little more. So like Connecticut History, Fairfield Museum and History Center, the Ridgefield Historical Society, this great institution, and a few others. They're great places to look if you have more questions about natives in Connecticut.